The day I bought 58 acres of rolling farmland just beyond the edge of Oak Ridge Estates HOA, I had no idea I was signing the beginning of the end for a neighborhood bully who'd ruled unchecked for over a decade. 3 weeks later, Linda Hargrove showed up at my new gate with bolt cutters in hand, local news cameras rolling, screaming that I had no right to block her access road, that my land was somehow part of the community's shared easement. Steel screeched as she attacked the lock like a woman possessed. What she didn't know was that this forgotten strip of pasture was the linchpin holding her whole crooked operation together. The second she touched that gate on live television, she set off a chain reaction that exposed 12 years of stolen dues, fabricated fines, and ruined lives. By the time it was over, Linda Hargrove would learn the true meaning of regret. Let me take you back 6 months. My name is David Harlan, 48 years old, a mechanical engineer who just walked away from a 22-year marriage that ended in quiet exhaustion rather than fireworks. I wanted silence, space for a workshop where I could restore old cars and maybe rebuild myself at the same time. Oak Ridge Estates, on the outskirts of Austin, Texas, felt like the answer. Mature live oaks, clean air carrying the scent of cedar, modest brick homes on generous lots. The realtor smiled and mentioned the active HOA that keeps the neighborhood looking sharp. Sounded reasonable. Then I met Linda Hargrove. 54, perfectly coiffed ash blonde hair. Always in pastel cardigans and sensible pearls, she drove a spotless white SUV that seemed to glide rather than drive. Her house was the biggest on the block. 4,200 square feet of colonial revival with white columns that practically demanded deference. Her husband, a pharmaceutical sales rep, was on the road most weeks, leaving Linda free to devote herself to her real calling, running Oak Ridge Estates like her personal kingdom. She'd been HOA president for 12 straight years, always unopposed because challengers mysteriously received waves of violation notices until they gave up or moved. My first lesson came 3 weeks after closing. I'd built a modest detached garage workshop. Nothing extravagant, just room for tools and a lift. One Saturday morning, as I was sanding down a fender, that voice cut through the air like a dull blade. "Excuse me, this is unacceptable." Linda stood at my fence line, measuring tape extended, clipboard in hand, face pinched like she'd bitten into something sour. "This structure violates setback requirements. Remove it immediately or face $500 daily fines." I showed her my building permit and the professional survey. Everything was 4 feet inside the line. She didn't blink. Intent to disregard community standards is as serious as the violation itself. You think you're clever, don't you? I saw curtains twitch across the street. Neighbors watching, silent. This wasn't new to them. That night I pored over the HOA bylaws, thicker than my divorce decree. An elderly neighbor, Mrs. Elena Vargas, leaned over the fence the next evening and whispered the truth. An older couple forced to rip out their vegetable garden for unapproved agricultural activity. A young family fined because their toddler's laughter disrupted quiet hours in the afternoon. 3 households driven out in 2 years. The $175 monthly dues paid for landscaping and a community pool, but really funded Linda's private enforcement squad. Engineers noticed patterns. This wasn't about standards. It was intimidation, selective and systematic. Linda targeted the vulnerable, seniors, single parents, anyone unlikely to push back. She'd miscalculated with me. 22 years married to someone who twisted words like pretzels had taught me to document everything. My job had taught me to solve problems methodically. First came the paint violation. A certified letter claiming my house's neutral beige violated approved community palette. Attached was a blurry photo and a demand to repaint. My house matched half the street. I had receipts. The color she demanded didn't exist in the original covenants. She'd invented it. I drove to the county clerk's office. 3 hours and some copying fees later, I found the truth buried in old documents. Any new architectural rule required 60% homeowner approval. Linda had been issuing emergency guidelines on her own authority for years. I photographed her own violations next. Fence 2 inches too tall, non-approved shutters, an extended driveway, never permitted. The shutter click felt like payback. Mrs. Vargas shared more stories over coffee. Families bankrupted by bogus fines. An elderly widow threatened with foreclosure over imaginary violations. The pattern was clear: drive out opposition, especially families with kids who might fight to keep the pool and park. Then the breakthrough. Researching adjacent land, I found 58 acres of farmland for sale, affordable with my settlement money, outside HOA jurisdiction, but including water rights and the only practical access road to the highway. The elderly owner was retiring. His kids wanted cash. Better yet, county records showed Linda negotiating secretly with Meridian developers to sell the community's common areas, pool, park, for high-density condos. Her cut, an $85,000 consulting fee. The new buildings needed easement across that farmland. Without it, the deal died. She'd been harassing families with children to thin opposition before a summer vote when attendance would be low. Every fine, every threat aimed at forcing sales. I bought the land quietly. Then I built the gate, 8 feet of heavy steel, electronic locks, security cameras. I planted cover crops, installed irrigation, filed for agricultural exemption. Legitimate farming trumped most zoning interference under Texas law. I controlled the road she needed. Linda's panic showed quickly. Vandalism at 2:47 a.m. Irrigation lines cut, crops trampled. Cameras caught her build, her license plate. I sent footage to Detective Ramirez in financial crimes. She tried fake inspections through a sham company owned by her brother-in-law. A $12,000 foundation repair demand. My engineer friend inspected, solid as rock. The company had no credentials. She offered a $5,000 bribe at the gate to remove it. I recorded it. She dumped her own renovation debris on my land, then reported me for illegal disposal. The inspector recognized the tile from her bathroom remodel. False emergency calls about chemical spills, just compost. Misdemeanor territory. The local paper ran the story after I shared evidence. Embezzlement through inflated family contracts, landscaping, pool maintenance, tree service, totaling over $200,000. Selective enforcement. Secret development deal. The emergency HOA meeting drew a record crowd. Linda arrived, suited up, flanked by lawyers. I had folders, projections, witnesses. I showed the vandalism video, the bribe audio, financial spreadsheets comparing market rates to her family's charges. Mrs. Vargas stood first. She fined my grandson for playing too loudly in his yard. An older man rose. She threatened to foreclose on my wife's house over nothing. We moved to assisted living out of fear. A young mother spoke. She cited my 3-year-old for holiday lights left up too long. Detective Ramirez identified himself in the back row. We're investigating embezzlement, fraud, vandalism, false reports. Linda Hargrove, you have the right to remain silent. Handcuffs clicked. She protested it was all orchestrated lies. The irony hung thick. With Linda gone, the board suspended her fines, ordered an independent audit. She pleaded guilty to embezzlement, fraud, false reports, 18 months probation, $200,000 restitution. New board elections brought real change. Mrs. Vargas became president. Term limits. Transparent finances. Fees dropped. Property values held steady. Displaced families returned. My farm became a community spot. Farmers markets, produce shares. I placed a conservation easement on the land, protecting it forever from development. Oak Ridge Estates healed. Monthly meetings turned collaborative. Kids played without fear of citations. Linda moved away after probation. Attempts to join other boards failed when records surfaced. I still run my workshop, now a neighborhood gathering place for projects and coffee. A neighbor recently asked if I consider city council. I'm thinking about it. Sometimes the best way to stop a tyrant is refusing to be afraid, documenting everything, and turning their own rules against them. One locked gate can end years of injustice. What about you? Have you dealt with unfair authority? HOA, workplace, or elsewhere? Where do you draw the line between standing up for yourself and crossing into something destructive? Share your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about power, fairness, and what real justice looks like in everyday life. Your story might help someone else facing the same fight.